So, some of you might have seen my Facebook post, but finally, after God knows how many months, finally got my wife a bike. Or another bike. She used to have a KLR 250. Anyway, so this is going to be a walk-around review of the 2015 XT250. So, bought this brand new, still got 0 miles on it, and I'm just going to do a walk-around and a short little ride. So what not to expect from this review straight away is the fact that since I'm breaking in the motor, I can't go past quarter throttle, so I can't really show you what the power is like, and so on and so forth. I will talk about specs though. So my goal with this so far is to show you basically in depth around the bike. I mean, why I bought the bike as I go, the things that are appealing to it, so on and so forth. Second caveat, it's my wife's bike technically, but you know, I love motorcycles too, and I think it was a great choice. I would have personally bought it for myself to ride as well. And I will be riding it a little bit, so much as my wife will allow. All right. So I guess step one of this is, why did we buy this bike? First and foremost, my wife is a new rider. She's only been riding for really a few months, and she really hasn't had a bike for a lot of that time. So, and initially we got a KLR 250, which was kickstart, and it was hard for her to start, and that's really the reason why we got rid of it, to get something else. And second comes to why the XT250, or I kind of already said that, but the main thing is that this bike is, you know, it's shorter. Its seat height is a lot shorter than, say, the WR over here. And it's a lot shorter than my DRZ over there, too. So, you know, and that was a huge appeal because for a new rider, I guess I think the thing that was the most scary to me when I first started riding on my DRZ was the fact that my toes barely touch the ground. You know, I'm 5'9", 150 pounds. So, you know, here's me trying to find a phone book every time I stop. So for her, she was just not comfortable with that, and she needed a shorter bike. And, yeah, so this is what we found. It's got a 31.9-inch seat height. For anybody who's curious and doesn't want to go to the Yamaha page. So that's pretty low. Offhand, I want to say the DRZ's 35, 36. So those were huge factors. Second of all is, you know, I wanted a reliable bike, and a lot of people online really like the XT250. It's reliable. It's a oil-cooled, air-cooled motor, no radiators to break, single overhead cam that Yamaha has pretty much been making forever, although there are some new differences on the 2015 model that I'll go into. All right, so for me personally, the looks of the bike. I love the way the bike looks. I love the color. Yamaha's blue. That's just, I mean, I like it. Not everybody likes the round headlight, and they think it looks kind of dated, but me, you know, I think it's got kind of a supermoto fender thing going on there, and, you know, I just actually think it looks like a kind of like a classic throwback kind of 80s bike that was modernized, which, you know, and technically, for anybody who knows anything about the bike, that's what it is. But, so for anything else, a lot of the other reasons we bought it is I thought, you know, it had good power. There are smaller dual sports that are shorter out there that I felt like were inadequate to ride on the roads here in Colorado Springs. You know, my buddy's wife's got the DR200 over there, and not a bad bike at all. That's another great choice, especially if you're short. And the thing that's fantastic about the DR200 is, well, you know, it weighs like 240 pounds, so I mean, it feels fantastic off-road. But for short highway stints, it's really, you know, you're really winding her out. So and I feel like the XT250, the extra 50 cc's goes a long way. You know, part of the other reasons is my wife in the motorcycle safety class. She rode an XT250, and she's kind of already comfortable on it. So this kind of goes back to some of my other videos on how to dual sport and other ones, is that you're person that you're teaching to ride has to be comfortable on what they're riding, and they have to like it. Because, you know, if my wife's not comfortable on the WR 250R, she's not going to want to ride it. So that's what it kind of came down to. Price, another factor. So my dealer gave me a fantastic deal in 2015. Out the door, I got it out the door for about $5,200. That's with taxes and everything. So that's a pretty good deal. So couldn't say no to that for a brand new bike. Trying to think what else. We'll go into some riding and handling characteristics a little later on in the video when I'm riding it around. So hopefully the weather holds out on me. So now we'll go ahead and I'm going to go over like each inch of the bike. The reason why I'm using my phone for this is so I can go over each little nook and cranny of the bike, because there's not a lot of reviews on the brand new XT250 that show any of the differences, or there's not a lot of reviews that really show that it's or what it up close look, so to speak. Because if you're wanting to buy this bike, obviously you want to see what every inch of it looks like before you do. And even when you see it, sometimes you don't have one at your dealer, whatever else. Maybe you're buying one used and you don't have the time to really look at it. So we'll go ahead and do that. So starting with the thing that's probably most notably new for the XT250 is the starting in 2013, Yamaha fuel injected the XT250 as well as changing some engine components. So I know they plated the bore for the inside of the bore for the cylinder, and I think they went to a different style piston. So there are some internal changes. I feel like they didn't change it too much because I guess why fix something that's not broken. But most notably, the biggest change that they made was the fuel injection system. And I think that's a fantastic change so far. We've started it up and rolled it around a little bit, and I'll ride it around. The thing fires right up. I mean, seriously, it just fuel injected. Anybody who's ridden a fuel injected bike, that's just the way it is. So I think that's pretty cool. And also on a power side of note, for the older XT250s, this motor makes I think about 2 horsepower more, not a whole lot, than the carbureted models from a few years ago. So not a big jump in power, so it's not a huge deal. So with that being said, its horsepower is about 19 horsepower. So, and I had to call Yamaha directly to get that information and talk to like 10,000 people because they don't list it on their website, and I didn't trust the internet. So take that for what it is. All right, so the next thing we'll go into a little bit is, ground clearance is pretty good. It's got 11.2 inches of ground clearance, and so that's a pretty good ground clearance for off the ground. And a lot of people online have said that the suspension travel isn't as long on this bike because it's not as tall, which is true. I can't remember the suspension travel for the front or the rear, or at least the exact numbers, but I know the WR is significantly more travel. But that being said, I think if you're buying this bike, you're buying it either because you are a short, light rider, which I think makes up for the difference of not having quite as much suspension travel. And I know you can adjust the suspension. So, and as always, my pet peeve is like, it's your bike, go get it resprung and valved for what your needs are. I know it's not the cheapest thing, but if you really want to be happy with the bike, I think that's the best way to go. So, very happy with that. So from an ergonomics standpoint, it's standard kind of handlebar setup. I think the handlebars are about right for me and my wife. We're pretty short people, so obviously that's not going to bother us. And switches and everything are standard on any motorcycle. It's kind of hard to see with the black. See if I can turn this on. Maybe not. Maybe. Oh, there we go, a little bit. So get it to refocus. There we go. So your display here, very standard. And I'll turn her on for a second here. I hear the fuel pump spin up there. So neutral light, it's got your high beam, gas light, check engine light for, this has obviously an ECU, electronic control module. So something goes wrong with one of the electronics, check engine light comes on just like your car. Turn signal indicator, of course, pretty standard. Then you're select and restart, you can do everything else. And as far as what it tells you time, miles per hour, distance, odometer, and it also has its own fault code indicator that will show up down at the bottom here. If something goes wrong, it'll give you a code and you can look it up. So that's kind of cool. Kind of simple. I mean, I guess for, I guess a cheaper bike, I think that's not bad at all. Kind of give you guys a rear perspective of her, kind of what she looks like. I know there's a lot of pictures on the internet, but, I try to do my best with these. Get better and better, right? So, I think it's a good looking bike. Really is. Oh, something else that, as I mentioned, is the fuel capacity is up from the older models, not by a whole lot, but it's now 2.6 gallons over the 2.4. Not a big increase, but I guess when this bike gets 73 miles to the gallon on the highway, that's pretty, that's a fair amount of distance, I guess. Also, for anybody else who wants to know, the fuel light comes on at 0.48 US gallons, so about half a gallon left when your fuel light comes on. Just gee-whiz info in case anybody has one. Just kind of looking at this for fun. All right, so one thing that I will bring up that I'm kind of disappointed from Yamaha, and I know most bikes don't come with a skid plate, but I kind of think if you're looking at the way I'm seeing this is, I feel like Yamaha should put some sort of skid plate underneath there. Personal opinion, but it's pretty exposed. So skid plate will probably be one of the first things I buy for this. All right, just for a short comparison, I'll throw this up so you can see the little bit of differences on this WR. You can definitely see that the WR is quite a bit taller. My buddy's got the seat carved a little bit, and he's lowered the bike a little, so not quite as tall as it normally would be. But you can definitely see she's a very different animal, and a lot of people, the thing I have issues with is a lot of people will compare the WR to the XT, which I don't think it's fair. The WR is definitely a lot more off-road oriented than the XT is. So, not to mention it's a lot more expensive too. I mean, it's almost, I think it's close to, by the time you add everything up, it's close to being $2,000 more. I can't remember the exact MSRP. 6,700, somewhere around there. So, yeah, it's, it is more. So it kind of depends on your riding style. I think the Yamaha keeps the XT around for the people that are shorter, want a little bit cheaper dual sport, and that is, I feel, very capable off-road. So.
All right, guys. So we're kind of out and riding around my neighborhood a little bit. Brand new bike. So like I said, not going to be able to go past a third of the throttle really. Like I said, I'm not going to be showing you like a 0 to 60 video or nothing. So that would be impressive anyway. But I'm just going to kind of show you, riding characteristics, kind of how I feel about it, my first impressions. I think those will be good starts to kind of go over. We're just going to go over some basic riding impressions. So first and foremost, I noticed the shifter is really, really positive. Like, I mean, probably the closest thing that I could come to, feeling like a sport bike kind of. Very short, not clunky. It's got a, I guess, spring tensioned shift linkage, so feels pretty fantastic actually. My DRZ is pretty clunky, so this one is not clunky at all. So second impression is the clutch is very, very smooth. It's another thing I'm kind of picky on some bikes, the clutch, but the clutch is just very, very, very smooth. Smoother than my DRZ, of course, simply for, really, truthfully, one reason. And that reason is my DRZ's clutch cable probably needs to be replaced. Another thing I'll comment on for the first few gears here is its gearing is spaced very much like my DRZ. So it's first gear kind of gets you to like 13 miles an hour. Second gear kind of gets you to like 20. Third kind of 30, so on and so forth. So it's got a pretty good spacing. I haven't been up any higher gears yet. So another thing is the motor feels like a very linear motor. It's got some bottom end. It's actually got a little bit of grunt at the bottom. So it's not too bad at all. I'm actually somewhat surprised at that, for even with the little amount of throttle that I'm using. So this bike's weight sits very low. It makes it very fun to kind of throw it around a little bit. And this bike, as far as weight goes, it weighs 291 pounds wet, and you know, that's not super light by any means. You know, for me, it you know, it's just doesn't seem all that light. But I guess for, you know, the Japanese dual sports, it is one of the lighter ones out of the 250 class, because Kalex 250S weighs 300 pounds, right at 300, so it's a little heavier. I think it's mostly due to being a water-cooled bike. The Honda CRF 250L weighs a lot more at 320 pounds. So, let's see, what's funny about the CRF 250L is, yeah, it makes a little bit more horsepower, but it makes pretty much the exact same torque. And it's pretty funny to me because, you know, it makes, I think, I want to say right at 20 horsepower. And the thing, which, you know, sounds pretty comparable, but because it weighs 30 pounds more, you might as well take 3 horsepower away. But then I know the if we want the WR weighs, I think, 295 pounds wet. I love the low seat height, I'm not gonna lie. I'm so used to like being on my tippy toes in my DRZ. I will say, for a taller rider, this bike would probably suck. I mean, I'm folded up pretty good, and I'm not that tall with my leg here. If your legs were much longer, it would be uncomfortably folded. Another tidbit of information, in case anybody's curious, is this bike comes with the infamous death wings for all of us, you know, DRZ folks out there. And probably others think the same way, but these are the Trail Wing 302 and 301 series tires, and, you know, haven't used them off-road, but just looking at the tread pattern, they look kind of like a, you know, like my Shinko 244s, like almost like a, I'd say like a 40-60 tire, like 40% off-road type use. And you know, I think I'm more than cool with that. You know, I think they do okay. I won't let my wife ride it off-road as a new rider. I think a new rider, you should really give them the best tools you possibly can to be successful, because it's hard enough learning as already is, you know, dirt biking, whatever, you know, without, you know, sliding around because of the tires. So I'll probably put a set of Kenda 760 Trackmaster 2s or Pirelli MT21s. So another thing about the bike is it's got a super short wheelbase, and it turns on a dime. Like, I swear, it is so easy to throw around. I think that makes it feel more nimble right there. So I'm cruising at about 50 at a quarter-ish throttle in 5th gear. Doesn't sound like she's having one bit of complaint with it. The motor really does have a good bottom end. You can feel the torque pretty good. It's kind of, you know, it's somewhat impressive to me. It kind of feels like its bottom end comes in a lot sooner than the WR's does. That's for sure. But a WR is a rev happy motor, so. And let's not get that confused with the fact that the WR makes a pretty significant more amount of power. So I don't want to make anybody angry with that. So my last comment, now that I've had it up in 5th gear, for that is that 5th gear is definitely a lot more shallow than the 4th and 5th aren't as tall as the DRZ's is. Gearing, so I mean, this is what I'm comparing it to. And let's see, I get killed here. 4-way stops are a good way to die here in Colorado. Anyway, as I was saying, 5th gear isn't as tall as what the DRZ is, so I would venture to say that this bike, I mean, I can't really wind it out, but I'd venture to say that like 75, 80 is probably its maximum speed. So nothing wrong with that. I think that's fine. I just need something that will hold 65. So, but I mean, my DRZ, really truthfully, my DRZ's like top happy speed 65 to maybe 70. But I still run it at on I-25, 75, 80 like all the time, and 10,000 miles later it hasn't blown up. So Yeah, I'm used to leaning a taller bike in the turns. I keep cutting them short. Fantastic though. It's just light to ride. It just, you know. Oh, I can't wait to get this thing broke in and off road. You know, of course my wife's going to be learning on it, but yeah, I can't wait. I think that'll be pretty spectacular. All right, guys. Well, you know, I'm gonna call it. I just want to do a short little day walk around and short review, because, you know, I obviously can't give you the full thing until she's got some knobbies and broken in. So hopefully that'll be soon. I want to be trying to drag this thing to work as much as possible so I can get that 600 miles done on her, so I can start letting her wrap out a little bit. And you know, so far these are my impressions. Let me know what you think. You know, if you're interested in an XT250, if you have an older one, if, you know, you're thinking about buying one, you know, just go ahead and, you know, put a comment down below. Let me know what you think. You know, tell me what bike you chose. All right, guys. Well, find a trail, have some fun, as always. Pharettface out.